Today I am super excited to be testing out 5 brand new drugstore dupes for popular high-end makeup. And some of these more expensive items are personal favorites, so I am very eager to see if the budget-friendly version can get me the same look. So we're just gonna jump in, but first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. Welcome to my channel where we talk all things budget beauty. If that sounds interesting to you, and then become the newest member of the Slashed Squad by hitting subscribe and the bell icon. The first high-end product that I'm going to try to dupe today is the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom eyeshadow palette. I have mentioned this palette several times on this channel because despite the $39 price tag, it is my absolute favorite neutral eyeshadow palette. This palette is often included in the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty sale, which is usually when I talk about it with y'all. But even for its full price of $39, I think that it doesn't get better than their Amazonian clay eyeshadow formula, which is so pigmented, so soft, so rich. I absolutely love the balance of colors in this palette. You have cool tones, you have warm tones, and they're all very cohesive. And I love how many mattes they put in this palette with the pops of shimmer and metallic finishes. So did I find a dupe? Maybe, maybe not, but I think we can get very, very, very similar looks with the $15 Catrice Basic Bay eyeshadow palette. This is a palette that really hasn't gotten a lot of hype here on YouTube or online in the beauty community. I think this is actually a really excellent neutral eyeshadow palette. The formula is really nice. I just have never heard people talk about it. And even though I'm acknowledging that these aren't gonna be shade for shade dupes, there are a handful of shades in the Catrice palette that I think match up pretty closely to the Tarte one. The other main difference with this palette is that there are more shimmer satin shades versus the Tarte palette, which is mostly made up of mattes. But again, I think we can get very similar, if not the exact same look. So we want an even playing field. I'm going to prime both of my eyelids with the Milani eyeshadow primer. So like I said, I think there are a handful of shades in here that actually do match up to be maybe dupes. So those are gonna be the shades that I focus on. Starting in the Tartelette in Bloom palette, I'm going in to this shade called Charmer, which is sort of a bone shade. And I'm gonna use that to set my primer and just go all the way up to the brow bone as a base shade. Now the thing about the Amazonian clay eyeshadow palette is that it's almost creamy, and it almost makes you need to go light-handed with the eyeshadows because it's actually pretty easy to go overboard. So in this palette, we have a shade called Basic, which looks pretty much the same. Let's see how that looks when it blends out, but it's looking pretty similar. So far, no difference. Next in the Tartelette palette, I'm going into Rebel, which is sort of this like medium mauvey brown. And I'm gonna be doing a halo eye type look today. So that's gonna be going in my outer and inner corner. And we'll blend that a little bit into the crease and upwards as well. I mean, you can see how much pigment goes on with these shadows with just a tap. And they stay looking so smooth and rich all day. Now going in to MCM, which is a very similar brown. It does look a little bit more chocolatey. Okay. Looks very similar. Now, as far as the formula of the Catrice shadows, they're not as creamy feeling as the Tarte ones, but I mean, you can see they're going on with a ton of pigment. They just don't necessarily have that like buttery, almost thickness to them, but still very smooth and silky. Yeah, this looks slightly darker on this side, but I think once we start blending out, it won't be a huge difference. Being very, very scrutinizing, I can see a slight tone difference on the two sides, but let's trust the process. Moving back into the Tartelette in Bloom palette, I'm going into Firecracker, which is a shimmery bronze. And just with my fingertip, because I always love how satin shimmers apply with the fingers, I'm going to put that toward the inner portion of my lid on either side of the matte brown. I'm just gonna blend that into the corners. So when swatching, the shade MUA in the Basic Bay palette looked very, very similar to Firecracker. Let's dip into that. Ooh, Yeah, I'm not seeing any difference between those two at all. Nice. Now, just working with these side by side, I do think that the Tarte shadows blend together a little easier than the Catrice ones. Like, I'm just getting a tiny bit of muddiness in my inner corner. It's not super noticeable. It's just like this one weird spot that's kind of layering strange. But other than that, I think this is definitely a shade for shade dupe. And I think adding that shade, both sides are looking pretty close. Back in the Tarte palette for the center of the lid and the brow bone, I'm gonna be going into Funny Girl, which is this beautiful champagne shade. I'm gonna pat that right in the middle. Beautiful. And I'll use a brush to get that on the brow bone. So in the Catrice palette, I believe the counterpart to this shade we just put on is Goals, which I will admit is slightly peachier of a champagne shade. This feels really soft. This actually feels the closest to the Tarte formula in this palette. Blend that out. I almost think this one's a little bit brighter. Yeah, these eyes I think would be indistinguishable in the wild. I don't think it's an exact formula dupe, but I think for drugstore, these are some pretty soft and pigmented shadows. Okay, this is the Urban Decay Waterproof Fine Point Liquid Eyeliner Pen. This is a brush tip liquid eyeliner, which y'all know is my preferred packaging style of liquid liner. Reviews on this online, whether it's on Ulta or Sephora's website, they're very polarized. People either love this or they hate this. This eyeliner is $22 and its claims and the look reminds me a lot of my current drugstore liquid liner favorite, and that would be the NYX Epic Ink Liner. Now, whenever I compare Urban Decay to NYX or Urban Decay to L'Oreal, I always want to mention that they are all owned by the same parent company. They're all L'Oreal. So there is a very good chance that these are very similar. Now this eyeliner has some weight to it. The packaging is very heavy duty and the brush is just gorgeous. It comes to this very, very fine point. Okay, with the right amount of pressure, it's dispensing the perfect amount of liner. I do feel like I have a lot of control with this. Now this is sort of a nearly matte liquid liner. It has such a beautiful rich black. It's just the slightest bit satin. There's just a very, very subtle hint of shine to it, but it's not shiny. That hardly needed any type of cleanup at all. Now let's go into the Epic Ink Liner because I feel like this sort of gives me the same thing, but for much less. This is only about $9 and I feel like the brush tip is almost exactly the same. I've said this in videos before, but it's just so easy to do my liner with this because of how much control and precision this brush tip gives me. I feel like the brush stays a little bit wetter with the NYX. I feel like I'm getting a little bit more product coming out of the NYX brush than the Urban Decay brush. Interesting. I feel like the NYX brush gives me the exact same amount of control as the Urban Decay brush. I do think that I prefer the flow of product in the NYX brush because the brush stays feeling consistently wet, so you get a little bit better of a glide. Maybe the NYX one is slightly less matte. Very, very, very hard to tell. But I think the brush quality and the way that it lays the liner is pretty identical. Like I don't feel like I have to constantly keep going in to even them out or clean up lines. It goes on very, very sharp. Next, I think we have a dupe for one of the best-selling high-end mascaras. So this is the Lancome Lash Idole Mascara. One of you all actually asked if I could find a dupe for this. This is $26, and while I think it's a great mascara, like I mentioned, it's best-selling at Sephora. I think if you just type in mascara, it's the first option. $26 for mascara when there are so many good drugstore options? I don't think so. This is supposed to give you lift and volume with a fanned out effect. It has a pretty wet, actually gel formula, and we have a curved brush that really helps you get all the lashes in each corner. Now, just the brush alone and sort of the vibe of this mascara, yes, I am judging it by its cover. It reminded me a lot of the Maybelline Lash Sensational mascara, which is about $9 in drugstores. This is also supposed to give you a very fanned out effect. We have a very similar curved brush wand and a wetter formula. So let's go in with Lancome first. Now, one thing that I always notice when I apply this mascara is that it's 100% clump free. You get this really nice even coating from root to tip. It's just uniform. It looks really nice and you get a natural taper to your lashes. But for $26, but see how it just keeps them really nice and separated and there's no clumps. Let's go in with our trusty $9 drugstore mascara. I can kind of feel the comb on this one separating my lashes more. Now this one is also giving me pretty immediate lift, and dare I say, it might even be keeping my lashes a little bit more separated. It is a slightly drier formula, and this is a brand new tube as well. I would say this is more of like a moussey mascara, where the Lancome is definitely more of a gel. There is something that looks just a little bit more uniform on each lash on the Lancome side. Some of the lashes on the Maybelline side look a little bit thicker toward the tip, where the Lancome maintains that very natural kind of thick to taper shape that a lash naturally has. But we have a very similar look overall, where we have the lashes fanned out. They're fanned out at the same angle. We achieved the same length and lift. So I would definitely say you're gonna get a similar look, and for the price difference, I would obviously go with the Maybelline side, but let's see how they perform throughout the day. I'm so stoked to test out this next pair of dupes. This is my all-time favorite highlighter, the Becca Champagne Pop highlighter. Now, when Becca announced that they were going out of business earlier this year, I panicked, because this highlighter, I mean, I fought it for so long, but every time I saw someone with beautiful highlighter and I asked what they were wearing, it was always Champagne Pop. But the good news is that the brand Smashbox actually took over manufacturing Becca's highlighters, so we will still be able to get them. But this highlighter is still $38. No. I only ever pick it up either in holiday sets or during 21 Days of Beauty. But I recently discovered that I may have had a dupe already in my collection all this time. Now this is the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter Palette. This is $10, but obviously you're getting a palette of 4 highlighters. And this bottom left shade looks so similar to Champagne Pop, both in the pan and swatched. I gotta see how they look on the face. It is a bummer that you cannot purchase this separately. It's only in the palette, but it's still gonna be a great value. Now, to describe Champagne Pop, it's obviously champagne. There is a little bit of a peachy lean to it, very, very subtle. It's just so beautiful. I love a highlighter that's not shimmer forward, where you really just get this glow going on and it's not glittery. And this just does that so well. It's so beautiful. I'm so glad. Thank you, Smashbox, for picking this up and saving it from the grave, because that was truly a scary moment. Now, as for the Essence highlighter, this is a little bit more shimmery just looking at it in the pan. Let's see how it just looks side by side here. Oh, beautiful. It is going on a little bit more bright, but I am using 2 different highlighting brushes, so got to take that with a grain of salt. But the shade, I think, looks pretty much the same. Okay, let me build up Champagne Pop just a little bit so we get the same intensity here. There we go. You can get there. I was just going a little lighter handed. Gosh, they are both so beautiful. I'm really not seeing a major difference on both sides. To finish this full face of makeup dupes off, I have a designer dupe that I want to test out. So this is the Giorgio Armani Lip Power Satin Lipstick. It is supposed to be a long-lasting satin lipstick that is also very hydrating and comfortable. It has oils in the formula. This particular shade is 106, which is a beigey mauve kind of shade. Now this shade plus the formula's qualities reminded me of a drugstore lipstick that's a hell of a lot cheaper. This is the Wet n Wild MegaLast High Shine Lipstick in Clothes Off. This is $2.99. So this is also supposed to be a very hydrating formula, although this is more of a glossy finish, but the shades looked similar, the feel sounded similar. Let's see how it goes side by side. Now I do love the teardrop shape on the Armani lipstick. It makes it very easy to get a clean lip outline without liner. I love this shade, it's so pretty. Now it does have kind of a creamy, cushy feel to it, but I would say that the finish is more shiny than it is satin. Like there is a slightly wet look to it that I think the Wet n Wild can match. And now we have Wet n Wild in Clothes Off. Oh wait, let me make sure. Got a good middle border there. Okay, wait a second. I think I really did find a good dupe. The formula of the Wet n Wild is definitely thinner. It's not as creamy. It has more of that melty texture to it. I have to make sure that I'm not swishing my lips. Okay, I can slightly see in the monitor that the Armani side is a bit maybe either deeper or warmer. Now these formulas are very different. The Armani lipstick feels like a traditional cream lipstick, like how it sits on the lips. The Wet n Wild feels like I've put on a lip gloss almost. It does have a very lightweight, slippy texture to it, and it has hyaluronic acid and I think butters in it that gives it this balmy feel that's like sinking into my lips. So here is my full face of drugstore makeup dupes. I really don't think, if you didn't already know, I did half my face with completely different products than the other, that you'd be able to tell. But I'll check in with you at the end of my day to give you my updated thoughts. All right, it's been 8 hours. I'm at the end of my day, about to work out and take my makeup off, but here's the tea. There have been a couple times where I checked my makeup in the mirror today and I forgot which side was drugstore and which side was high-end. So I think that's saying something, but there are a few noticeable differences, so let me zoom you in. So why don't we just go in order of how I applied, starting with my eyeshadow. So on both sides, the pigment is there, the blending is still smooth, and like I said, I forgot throughout the day which side was which. Even though we had some like tone differences as we were applying, after everything came together, I mean, they are definitely dupes, at least these 4 shades, but in general, you can definitely save your money if you do want to have a neutral eyeshadow palette that is well balanced between warm tones and cool tones with a very soft and easy to use texture. Moving on to the Urban Decay liner versus the NYX eyeliner. I mean, both of them still look great and fresh and sharp. There is no smudging, no transferring, no flaking. I mean, like I said, there's just slightly more shine on the NYX side, but other than that, I mean, you're not gonna catch me spending more than my $9 on my NYX liner for sure. As for the mascara, we've got the Lancome versus Maybelline, and even though, because I'm like up close and I can really see the difference, at like a normal length of just talking to someone or even taking a photo, there is not a huge visible difference here. Both sides have stayed curled and lifted, and they are both lifted at the same angle at this point in the day. My lashes weren't weighed down at all, and there's no smudging, smearing, or flaking on either side. So even though they may not be exact dupes, you are going to get a look that is so similar, it's not worth spending the $18 difference. And to be honest, I feel like the Maybelline mascara sort of separated my lashes a bit more thoroughly. Like I feel like I look like I have more lashes on this side. You tell me. Now with the highlighter, this is probably my most exciting dupe of the video, at least for me personally. Champagne Pop still hanging in there. I mean, this is an all-day glowy highlighter, but the essence is giving it a run for its money. It is still going strong. It's still blended out so smoothly. I really cannot tell a difference shade-wise at all. So this is the biggest surprise, the most exciting for me. I'm so happy to have found this. Now for the lips. So I said right away that the Armani lipstick and the Wet n Wild lipsticks had drastically different formulas despite the shade match being very, very close. But funny enough, I think they kind of wore the same throughout the day. I mean, I'm definitely going to give it to Armani. There's more color left on this side, but they both faded pretty quickly while eating to the point of this. I feel like in a normal circumstance, I would probably reapply at that point in the day. But even the Wet n Wild did leave a subtle wash of color on the lips even after the glossiness faded. And on the Armani side at this point too, there's no more shine or satin finish at all. It's really kind of settled into more of a matte. So I just found that interesting. I would definitely say the shades were a dupe, but now I'm kind of thinking also the formulas are closer than I originally thought. Are there any specific high-end makeup products you'd want me to find a drugstore dupe for in my next video? Let me know in the comments below. Today's shout out goes to Gabby. Thanks for being a member of the Slashed Squad. And join me over here in my last dupes video featuring NARS, Rare Beauty, Urban Decay, and more. I'll see you over there. Bye!